Hello and welcome. This is FYI. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. Now, over the past few months, we on FYI have tried to keep you updated with the latest COVID studies, trends, vaccines, symptoms. And in that endeavour, we bring to you today what could possibly be the next big challenge for India. Yes, I know we are in the middle of a massive second wave already, a second wave which has been triggered by a dangerous double mutation. And I'm already talking about the next challenge. The sad news at the moment is that some parts of the country have now got traces of a triple mutation. And in order to beat it, we need as much information on this as possible. This explainer now has some of the details about India's triple mutation. Some basics first. What is a mutation? Well, viruses keep changing and their structure, also known as mutation, keeps changing. In fact, some viruses spread, and the more they spread, the more they mutate. While most of these mutations are harmless, some of them can trigger changes in spike protein and thus a matter of concern. Like the India double mutation is a cause of concern, and now more and more evidence saying that it is likely to be something that has triggered this massive second wave in the country. And while we are still struggling with that, emerges the triple mutation. What is the triple mutation? Well, simply put, it refers to variants which have three different strains that have combined together to form a new variant. The mutations may lead to variant either being more potent or less potent. In fact, when it comes to mutations, there are three things that really matter. One, how infectious is it? Second, how deadly is it? And third, is it resistant to antibodies, meaning will vaccines work against these mutations? So far, there are no clear answers really, and that's the sad part when it comes to these pertinent questions, because India simply does not genome sequence enough to prepare a database. But 2 out of these 3 mutations in this variant are known to confer immune escape, making this not work against either acquired antibodies or the vaccine antibodies, which is a reason to worry. So, where all are these mutations at the moment in the country? Well, traces have been found in Maharashtra, in Delhi and in West Bengal. What are we doing about it? How are we preparing for this new enemy really? Again, India sequences less than 1% of our positive cases, so we are anyway behind this race against the mutations. However, sources indicate that so far the triple mutation is still a variant of interest and not stamped as a variant of concern. So as to say that it is more lethal and the government to start taking any proactive measures on this one. But we really hope here that, like it has been the case with double mutation, there are no delays this time and we are able to detect, sequence and isolate people with this triple mutation and nip it in the bud. All right, let's go across to our guests now and our panel of experts to try and take this conversation a little forward. We've got Professor Madhukar Pai joining us. Now we've got Dr. Geeta Vani, who will be with us in a few minutes. Dr. Anup Kumar is with us, and Dr. Kanakar as well. Dr. Madhukar Pai, first up to you. India has very little that has been disclosed or what we know about this triple mutation at this point. But we know that it has been found in South Africa, it has been found in UK as well. What have been some of the key learnings from that?
Thank you, Sonal. Firstly, I want to express my solidarity. My own family is struggling in India and they're sick and we're not getting any help. So I can understand how desperate the situation on the ground is. I'm very anxious about it. I think what we do know is that variants are driving the epidemic everywhere now. This is not just India. Every part of the world, the new surges are all driven by variants. So the first thing we have to do is to acknowledge the problem. Hiding information about variants or dismissing their importance is just complete idiocy. We have to track the variants. We have to be 2 steps ahead of the virus. We must know what we're dealing with, and we cannot fly blind in this pandemic. So every Indian scientific laboratory that is capable of sequencing must be put on the job to sequence more and more strains across the country so that we know what we're dealing with. For example, are we primarily dealing with the B1617 Indian variant? Or as you mentioned, is it 618 that is driving the current surge? I don't know. You don't know. None of us know. And what does it actually mean for the three things that you mentioned? Is it more transmissible? Well, look around you. Everybody knows a family who's entirely come down with the virus. This is a more transmissible variant. There is no doubt about it, not even a shred of doubt in my mind. Young people, entire families are coming down with the virus. So to me, whatever the variant is, it is making lots of people sick and very quickly, as India's trajectory looks like a vertical line right now. So there is no doubt in my mind that it's more transmissible, whatever the strain is. Is it making people more sick? Just again, look around you. Our own anecdotal information shows lots of young people are falling sick. Many of them need hospitalization, oxygen. People are desperately looking for beds. So I'm very worried that it's making people sicker as compared to last year's virus that we saw. Thirdly, the immunity is where we really don't have much information. As you mentioned, if the mutation is in the spike protein, for sure it may escape the immunity. Now, the fact that India had such a massive wave last year, and it is a mega wave this year, tells me that some people who got exposed last year are getting COVID this year, which means there is some amount of escape of the naturally acquired immunity. We don't quite know how much. Now, the vaccination part is very challenging. We know from data outside of India that even among variants, vaccines generally do work. They may not work as much, but they definitely protect because vaccines afford a polyclonal response. So one or two mutations may not dampen that entirely. But again, we need to do studies whether the vaccines that are used in India will afford enough protection. Now, since India only ramped up vaccination by around February, March, many Indians have only received one dose. My own family in India has only received one dose. Now, is one dose enough to protect them in the midst of this massive surge? I don't know. Anecdotally, I know for a fact that people who've received one dose of AstraZeneca have gotten sick during this current wave in India. But again, I'm hoping that the vaccine, even if it is one dose, might still protect them from death, even if it doesn't protect them from falling sick. It might still confer a benefit and might dampen the severity of the disease so that they can fight it better. One way or the other, we have to vaccinate more and more and more people in India and do it very quickly, track the variants. We may need to re-engineer the vaccines in future to deal with these escape variants. But that is what the whole world will have to do, not just India. As the variants take over globally, we have to keep re-engineering the vaccine to make sure that it affords enough protection. Vaccines that we developed last year may no longer be adequate, just as monoclonal antibodies developed last year have been withdrawn, FDA has disapproved them because they're no longer working against the variants. The company itself has told the FDA to stop the approval because monoclonal antibodies are not working against the variants. So whether it's the antibody therapy or the vaccines, we have to keep tweaking it. The only way we can tweak it is to understand what we're dealing with. That requires massive expansion of gene sequencing and capacity, which I know for a fact India has. India has the capacity. We need to do it on a war footing. Every laboratory, academic or otherwise, that has sequencing capacity in India must be put on the job. And if India needs help, the whole world will be ready to help India with better sequencing so that we are not flying blind in this pandemic.
All right, you've said all the important things right now. Everything really, hits the nail there. And Professor Pai, I really hope your family recovers out of all of this. My family as well, most of them down. Half of them were down in the first wave this time as well. So these are troubled times. So we continue to and talk about this. But your last point there, you're saying India does have the capacity, because last I checked, we were sequencing less than 1% of our positive cases. We have about 10 labs in the country which are doing this sequencing. You're saying we have the capacity and we're not doing it?
Sonal, there are so many academic institutions in India. ICMR itself, they may not be necessarily doing viral sequencing right now, but they have sequencers. They have smart graduate students. They have entire institutions that would be ready to come. This needs to be a community effort. Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a smaller country than ours, with less resources, they have done a far better job of sequencing and tracking their strains than we have done in India. Can you explain to me how that is? Because they have teamed up. They had hundreds and thousands of grad students volunteer their time. Day and night they worked in the laboratories to sequence. They have a beautiful database of what they're dealing with in Bangladesh, and we don't. Why is that? This needs to be a national call. Every scientist who has any ability to sequence must be told, please volunteer your time and contribute, give them the resources, and contact groups like WHO, contact groups like FIND, Foundation for Innovative Diagnostics. They have the money and the resources to deliver. They can help. Please ask for help. Let's not do this in a crisis and pretend that we can do everything ourselves. India also needs help in getting more vaccines now. How do we vaccinate a country of 1.2 billion people starting May 1st? How do we open it to everybody 18 and above if the supply doesn't go up? We need more vaccines, and we need to beg, borrow, steal to make sure we have enough. This cannot be just India's problem. It is no longer India's problem. Every country will now ban Indians from traveling outside India. Do you know that? Right. It's already happened. UK has put India on the red list. US has banned travel to India. Every country will now say nobody from India should come into our country and nobody from our country should go into India. This is a mega crisis. Asking for help and accepting help is the only way we're going to survive this crisis. The whole world is looking at India right now. We just cannot think that we can pull off rabbits from our hat. We've got to ask for help when we need help.
All right, we really hope the government is listening right now, because I absolutely am in total agreement with what Dr. Pai is also saying at this point. This is really the need of the hour. But let's switch back our focus for a second to this triple mutation and try to just sort of decode it a little more at length. Let me bring in Dr. Supradeep as well. He is an associate professor of biochemistry at AIIMS. Dr. Supradeep, I just want to understand from you, we know very little, like I said right in the beginning, but what we do know is that 2 out of the 3 strains that are being seen in this mutation now are known to have immune escape, meaning they will jump immunity and they will manage to escape that, either antibodies that have been acquired because of the disease or even the injections. Isn't that a major wake-up call at this point? Isn't that a reason to seriously look into this triple mutation?
Okay, thank you for inviting me in this forum. So I just want to kind of clarify that, for a highly mutable entity like the virus in this case, the SARS-CoV-2 virus in this case, it's not very unusual that, we would be seeing variants. I mean, so if you talk about the B117 variant, which originated in UK, that has 23 mutations. So it's not unusual that we don't see mutations or we don't see variants. I mean, that's the kind of, the viruses are actually programmed to, undergo frequent mutations to escape the immune systems. Yes. But what is even more important is that these mutants actually do evolve during the course of virus infection cycles. But then our immune system can also have the capacity to take care of that. They may not take care of it immediately, but then eventually they are going to pick up and eventually going to find out these variants and going to neutralize it. So
well, that's a very hopeful statement at this point, Doctor. But isn't information key over here? Information that we all lack at this point. I've spent a day just talking to several virologists across the country just to sort of bring in this much information at this point, and this is also too little. We don't know how many strains, which strain, they're still trying to identify the third one. But let me bring in Dr. Geeta Vani at this point, Head Science Communication and the Directorate there at CSIR. Dr. Vani, lots of concerns here, primarily about the information we lack when it comes to the triple mutation. But let me ask you, try and understand this one more time. We do know that it's the coming together of 3 sort of variants, 3 sort of mutations over here. Do you know something more than I know at this point? Can you shed some more light on it?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with my previous panelist and expert that mutations are going to happen, and we are giving ample chances for the mutations to happen, because by not wearing masks and by increasing the transmission, because the virus can mutate only if it replicates. and replication happens only within the human beings. So if we don't
the more
take
spreads, the more
precautions,
mutations really.
but the more mutations, so there may be, 4 mutations tomorrow, and we may be getting concerned about it tomorrow. So I think the point to note here is there are mutations going to happen, and it is not unusual for a variant.
Okay, can I ask you this then, Dr. Vani, that currently India categorizes its genome sequencing under 2 categories. There is a variant of interest and there is a variant of concern. We saw these new variants from UK, from South Africa, Brazil, double mutation become a variant of concern much later. When the world had already woken up to it, we sort of went into that mode much later. Is it time that we sort of take this triple mutation much more seriously now? It is still of interest, not of concern, according to the books at the moment.
See, I think the categorization of these variants of concern and interest and consequence is based on the data, on the evidence. So it is not that today we have identified and immediately becomes a variant of concern, because we need to see that this triple mutant indeed is escaping the antibody neutralization, or it is transmitting. So in my opinion, I think we need to generate data. Yes, it is concerning. I am not denying the fact that we should not be worried about it, or we should not be concerned about it. But I think that we need to generate data that yes, whatever these mutations are really doing what one is expected to do. That I think is going to take some time. And as you rightly said, it takes time for the data to be generated. But at the same time, we should not stop from, taking whatever steps we need to take in terms of identification of this virus, how it's spreading, and also, to do these experiments and generate the data.
All right, time is what we need. Time perhaps is what we don't have at this point. But I'm going to bring in our Dr. Anup Kumar also, but on the other side of this very quick break. Welcome back. We're discussing the triple mutation in the country at this moment. Little known, but much desire to be known at this point. Let me bring in Dr. Kumar also. Dr. Kumar, very quickly, your thoughts on where we are when it comes to triple mutation.
Thanks, Sonal, for having me here. I just want to explain in very simple words for the viewers who are viewing this show. This mutation, but why we're talking about this mutation, because this virus has got a nuclear material which is covered by a lipid membrane. It has got spike proteins over it. Now, when we talk about double mutation, there are 2 genetic sequences which are being mutated, and when we talk about the third mutation, that is a triple variant, the 3 mutations are happening in the spike proteins. Now, when it enters into the host cell, our immune system actually recognizes the virus through these spike proteins, and if there are mutations, this virus might have the immune escape phenomenon. So that's why we are seeing the double mutant. Already we are seeing the increased transmission rate, number 1, and it is already affecting the younger individuals, number 2, and number 3, the pathogenicity and the effectiveness of this virus is also more severe. So that's why we are concerned about this triple mutation. But I want to add one more thing. India is a developing country. It takes 3 to 5 days and around 3,000 to 5,000 to generate one sequence. So it's not an easy task. And I think I agree with my previous panelists. We need help from other countries so that we can collaborate.
But Dr. Pai had a very good suggestion. He's saying, why can't all scientists in the country contribute at this point?
Definitely. All the scientists are now, they are focusing on this particular, which is known as genomic sequencing. But right now, our main focus is to contain this disease, which is really rampant in the whole country. But I agree with Dr. Pai that this is the need of the hour to increase our sequencing, and all the scientists, they have to contribute to this cause. And this will happen in the coming months. I'm very 100% sure, because our government is very, very focused on all kinds of aspects, yes, so that we can control this disease.
I'm running out of time, so I'll leave it there at the moment. Thank you all for your thoughts on this. But just want to end by saying time is ticking and we don't have much. We need to get ahead of this virus. We need to understand our enemy if we want to defeat it. That's something quite basic. Leave it there. Thanks for watching.